Alrighty, everything is set up now. We can get started. Um, hey, it's okay. You're not late. It is 2:01, and we are ready to jump in. Um, so, um, continuing this one from last time, and the dice picked the other ones that I also didn't get to finish for a while. So, like we're catching up today. Um, I'm gonna barely color. Oh, hey, D-Strike. Nice to see you here. Hello, Acorn Draws. Again, thanks for coming. I'm just gonna take a sip of water. Oh, nice. Glad to see you're here. Um, so yeah, let's see. As it says in the stream description, the topics that were chosen today are a little more substantial than what I usually talk about. Too lazy to sleep. Oh boy, I wish I could say I couldn't relate, but I can't. Hey Fantasy, thanks for tuning in. It's nice to see everybody here. This is a really good start for an afternoon stream. So yeah, thanks guys. Um so like I was just saying, the topics that were chosen for today are a little more substantial than what I usually discuss. Uh, but that is okay, because if you guys want me to talk about them, I will talk about them. So, Telltale Games. What happened? Um, Now, because this is a thing that I do for fun and, um, well, a little profit too, but, since this is a thing I do for fun and not really a full-time job, I only bothered looking at one or two articles. But near as I can tell, a new CEO had been brought in to fix the toxic working environment over at Telltale Games. Apparently, they had a big problem with toxic coworkers and constant crunch time, and they were experiencing a lot of burnout because of the way that they were running things. So they brought in this new guy to replace the old guy, and the new guy systematically fired some of the especially toxic coworkers. Uh, it mentioned a mass layoff over in November, and I don't know if those two things are connected, but I think they have been. Um, Again, those of you who have time to put in more research because you don't have midterms this week, feel free to correct me. I haven't really ever gotten to play a Telltale game. Like, I know they do good stuff, or they did good stuff, but I spent all my money on art supplies, so, you know, opportunity cost, guys. But, so because of the way they were running things, they were having some problems with employee burnout and a toxic work environment, and just in general becoming very creatively stagnant or stagnant. Can't talk today. So they did what should have been a good move and brought in a new guy. Now, accounts are varied. Most of them agree that the new guy fixed the most toxic parts of the working environment. Oh, thank you for complimenting my questionable financial choices. um, yeah, That thing you said about applying for a job at TellTale, stick a pin in that because I'm gonna get to it. Um, so, like I said, they brought in the new guy, and he fired a bunch of the people who were making things really, uh, really toxic there. Um, but according to some employees who were kept anonymous, on purpose, because they were, I don't know, I think kind of reasonably, and we'll get to why that's reasonable later. They were a little bit afraid of retaliation, so they were kept anonymous in the article. Um, but according to some of those employees, the new guy did not fix the constant crunch schedules and the ridiculous amounts of overtime everybody had to work in order to push out properties fast enough for the IPs that they acquired or did business with. So the thing about crunch time is it does not lend itself to very good, it doesn't usually lend itself to very good product. A huge both financial and creative cost. Um, if I were the new guy, what would I have done? Well, I'm gonna get to that, because the reason why they closed, or the reason why they closed, is that they lost two backers. One being AMC, who was not actually going to back the Walking Dead series because they are only interested in financing their TV show version of The Walking Dead. But it was for another property, apparently. And then the other one was a Korean company um, called Smile something. I don't know. It's been like an hour since I looked at the article. um, but here's the thing, they were relying on those companies to save them from bankruptcy. According to the employee interviews, they thought that the deals were all but signed, and that even if one backer left, the other one would cover their expenses for a little while. Um, they did not anticipate both backers leaving. And this is where my choices really would have diverged from what the new guy did. Um, Now, I'm not a business person. I really am not good at managing business sides of things, but I do have a few philosophies, and one of them is don't count your chickens until they hatch, unless you are trying to estimate how much those chickens are going to cost you. Don't try to estimate how much they're going to bring you, or don't count on how much they're going to bring you until they hatch. It's always better to overestimate costs and underestimate income. So I would have maybe not been quite as optimistic, if that's what you want to call it, about those backers. I would have been pursuing other projects or other backers for potential projects. The other thing that I would have done is I would have tried to look at our financial situation with an eye for the worst case scenario. Yeah, be more realistic, basically. Um, Now, one of the things that the people liked about the new guy, and this is where it gets kind of complicated, was they liked how optimistic he tended to be, and optimism is a very good way to keep up team spirit, you know? And it's important when you're working 40 hours a week on games. It's a very stressful field, and a little optimism is brightly welcome. But he did not approach things necessarily with a measured optimism. It was more of a blind optimism. So, nobody really anticipated that the company was going to close. And to an extent, I don't even think the new guy thought that the company was going to close. And that brings us to another thing I would have done differently if I were the new guy. They were hiring as, they were continuing to hire people as late as that week. Had I been the new guy, and had I looked at our numbers, I would have been a little more cautious about bringing in new employees. Because I will, as much as I champion the fact that literally, or maybe not literally everybody, but I want to say about 90% of the people in this country could use a raise. While I will always champion that fact that about 90% of us could probably do with a raise right about now, the fact of the matter is, from a business perspective, that employees are expensive. You have to pay their wages, you have to pay their benefits if you offer them, and they are completely, or at least in TellTale's case, most of them are completely dependent upon you for their livelihood. Rent in that area is ridiculously expensive. Most of the developers working on their games were living paycheck to paycheck and paying as much as 50% of their income on rent alone. Some of these people had families, and some of them maybe didn't. I'm sure they had things that they were saving up for, or regular expenses that they needed to cover. And so this brings me to the third thing I would have done differently if I were the new guy. Had I looked at the numbers, not only would I have slowed down hiring, I might have made an announcement saying we're really in a bad place, prep your portfolios in case the worst happens. I know that's kind of a disheartening message to have to deliver to over 200 employees who are dependent upon you to continue living their normal daily lives, but it's an announcement that you have to make. It comes with the territory sometimes. But this is where things are starting to get a little more interesting, because where they live, or where the studio is based, which I believe is in California, has a law which is basically an extension of the federal WARN Act. Now, what the WARN Act requires is that any company that is going to be performing mass layoffs, defined in the WARN Act as 60 or more workers, and defined in California's version as like, I think it's 30 or more. But the basic gist of it is that when you are firing that many people, you are required by law to give them enough notice to get their stuff in order. You are required to let them know that they will not continue to be employed a minimum of 60 days before their employment is set to end. These people thought that they were going to continue to be employed and that they were walking into a normal workday. 60 days worth of notice was not given. So there is now a class action lawsuit in place against the company for not letting them know and not legally complying with the WARN Act. And that, on one hand, it may affect what they're able to salvage of their projects. On the other hand, it could have been avoided by simply obeying the law, maybe being a little more realistic, not relying on two backers, or at least not courting more. And I'm not saying that to be like, it's all their fault. You know, sometimes things happen, and I can understand the business side of it, but the fact of the matter is, it wasn't, to anyone looking at it realistically, it would not have been a complete surprise. Having two backers pull out within hours of each other was surprising. But again, you know, don't necessarily want to rely strictly on backers to save your entire company. That is not a realistic way to run things. So yeah, TellTale, it is a mess, and it is a shame that they won't be finishing stuff. But the way that they have gone about things, it kind of why what happened happened. And I do think that the lawsuit against them on behalf of their former employees is warranted. Again, they were told that they would be allowed to keep their health care until the end of the month, but the announcement was made 9 days before the end of the month. You know, 9 days is not enough time to get new insurance and new employment and make rent. So the fact that they were fired without even severance pay makes it even worse. So I really do hope that an equitable solution for all parties can be reached. And I realize that for fans of TellTale, I may be coming across as kind of a tough love kind of type, but that's business for you. It's not easy. It's not fun. I don't understand why people would major in it, except that if you're good at it, it'll make you good money. Um, but yeah, I am a little bit sad, admittedly, to see a company go under, especially one that big. But I'm not surprised why they did. Their choices on the financial standpoint made very little sense, and you know, they happened to get hit with a piece of bad luck that, had they accounted for the very likely possibility of it happening, or had they even considered the possibility that that two backers would fall through, they might have done a little bit more to be able to stay afloat in the event of that. Um, so it is a shame. I do not think there was any malicious intent on the part of the new guy, by the way. I think he was legitimately trying to do what he thought was best for the company. I just happened to make the wrong decisions at the wrong time, or maybe even the right decisions at the wrong time. Um, I do think his career is not likely to go too many places after this. He is going to be known as the guy who was in charge when TellTale went under. And that is going to affect his career quite a bit. It's not going to be pretty for him. But you know what? I'm going to draw out some. But yeah, I don't know too much about the TellTale situation. I do know that one of their new employees that they had hired, well within the period that they should have been aware that they were in trouble, said that they had recently moved all the way across country to work for them. And, yikes. Not. And then, who's on? Form this. So, yeah, that's Telltale. It's a shame it happened because, from what I heard, it sounded like the new guy really did show some promise. But we will have to wait and see if they are able to get their severance. Um, as for thoughts on Cartoon Network now teaching and hiring people to do storyboarding, I think that could be a very good alternative for people who don't want to have the expense of going to a school, which may not pan out. Um, I don't know the terms of Cartoon Network's hiring, though. The terms, if they're anything like Disney's, and they might be, may not be worth it. Um, I had considered joining Disney's program for the same thing, but I did not really care for the terms of it. Um, I would argue that it's fine for them to keep focusing on Teen Titans Go. It's not disrupting Go to do so. Um, I don't know. Like, I don't like Teen Titans Go, but we can still watch the original Teen Titans. It's not like that's been stricken from history or anything. You know? Just because the Star Wars prequels exist doesn't mean the original trilogy doesn't. Now, that said, Lucas should probably probably um, release the non-remastered versions of the original trilogy, just because that's not, like, if people want to watch the remastered versions, that's fine, but I think keeping the original versions, maybe updated to Blu-ray would be a good choice. Thoughts on Steven Universe? I haven't seen it, so I am not in a position to offer any fair critique or anything of it. I think the art style is nice. The songs are catchy. I've heard some of those. And near as I can tell, the plot seems alright. Yeah, it would be cool if the original Star Wars films got released in their entirety, or without the changes made in the remastered version. So, yeah, I'm just gonna do some flat colors because we're almost 30 minutes in. I haven't heard that rumor, so I can't really comment on it. I think it would help to know which movie he's theoretically going to be working on. Um, Sounds like an interesting choice. Now, and but yeah, I'm not really in a position to talk his directing stuff. At least not at the moment. Maybe I'll talk about that next stream if you guys want. Because that is entirely. I'm just gonna. Uh, yeah, I hope Aquaman. Well, I don't know. Aquaman does look interesting. Um. Ooh. So how did I get into art? Well, I mean, like pretty much everyone else, I've been drawing since I held a crayon. Um. But um. Huh. I got a roll in the direct sheet for S. Oh, okay. I was like, there's a lot of things SS could stand for there, buddy. Um, but back to Matchy's, or at least Strike's question about my art background and how I got into it. I started watching Mark Crilly videos on YouTube when I was 12, and then Um, he did some talks about how he got published and stuff like that, and I thought, you can do art as a career? I want to do that. And here I am. A little, like, I've had exactly one formal class in high school one time. Um, it was art 2. I did very well. I was maybe already a little bit too advanced for it. Maybe I should have picked a harder class. But I had fun and I got to draw with my friends. I learned a lot of the idea generating techniques that I've been using lately. Um, let's see. I'm not an art major though. Um, People, or like at least anyone who sees my sketchbook, asks me if I'm an art major or an animation major, but I'm just a video production and film major. Video production is, I don't know, like, it's a long story and I don't want to have a pity party, but I have looked repeatedly for real jobs, and on the handful of occasions I've found them, they have never worked out. And it feels like every time I try to go into another, every time it feels like I try to go into another field, something just keeps shoving me back into this film. I wanted to call it something just shoves me right back into. I had once asked if I could be recommended to attend governor's school for visual art because a former governor's school student said that I had the chops for it, but the art teacher at the time said no, and she just said that I didn't have what it took to hack it in that particular level of class, and that I needed to do less digital work and less small work. She said that I needed to draw large grayscale charcoal graphite stuff, um, or else I'd never get anywhere. And so what I did was I submitted one of the storyboards I was going to use in my art portfolio, and I thought, well, you know what? I'll look out for film. We don't have a film teacher, so they will take the next best thing. And I got in on a storyboard that I did. I'm not sure if I still have it public on my channel, but if I do, I will post it on DeviantArt. Oh no, it's okay. Rejection is just a thing when you do art. It's a normal part of the process. And you know, there was some truth to what she said. You know, it may not have been true necessarily in a modern context, but I'm really sure that there was a time when you legitimately couldn't have gotten an art job. Unless you had a portfolio of big, impressive pieces, you know? So, yeah, I don't think she was necessarily wrong, or at least I can understand her side of things. Um, yeah, I had showed her a piece I did. It was a realistic piece that I did digitally, and she said, "How do I know you didn't just edit a photo?" And I replied, "Do you want me to sit here and redraw it in front of you?" Um, I was an A and B student. Mostly A's though. Um, I was really good at school for some reason. Um, but that said, I don't miss school. I will probably never miss school, and I'm still trying to convince my family to let me burn my cap and gown. I just do not miss it in the slightest. So, on to the next piece. Um, I like everybody told me these are going to be the best years of your life, you're um and you're going to miss it so much. And I have come to realize that when I ask people what they miss about their high school years, it always amounts to not having to pay bills and not having chronic pain. Um, and I had to do both in high school. Um, Less so paying bills. Um, but chronic pain I have had since like sixth grade. It's just a thing, you know? You'll learn to live with it. Um, yeah, stress, I find either people thrive under it or they don't. I thrive under it, which is probably why film is a better work environment for me because it is capital S stressful. I mean, like, maybe it's not as stressful for me as like business and stuff, but it is interesting. So this one uh, is Mortem Nort. Um, I know I've already tried to draw Soda Bane. I'm actually kind of procrastinating on him. I want to talk with Pepsi Man some more about the design. What was my motivation when I started posting in DeviantArt? Okay, so one of the biggest barriers to me in my life is that my parents thought it would be a great idea to move out into the middle of nowhere. Um, and it's not actually the middle of nowhere. Um, since I am completely okay with sharing my hometown online, um, since I'm completely, yeah, Mortem Nort, I tried to make, one of the things I do whenever I draw a Nort of a character is I try to make it kind of the opposite of that character, at least in mannerisms. So, like, I never draw Mortem smiling. This is like the giving him a smile. And I thought, this is gonna be creepy. But anyway, so my motivation for posting on DeviantArt was that we had just moved to Lewisburg, Tennessee, home of my tonic goats, and not much else. uh, that's not true. We used to be the pencil capital of the world, but then that factory got moved to Mexico. Um, the building is still there though. Um, so anyway, when we moved there, there weren't any opportunities for me to physically go somewhere and get useful critiques or take any art classes or um yeah, like how Claire became sadistic in her nightmare. She's uh Claire is very sweet, and I thought that I don't know, it's just this is just my technique. Another way to go about it would be to have them be very similar but ever so slightly off. And I think that's kind of what was going on with Terranort. Um, and might be a little bit closer to Nomura slash Square's style of dealing with Norts. But I like the idea of having their personalities be exactly opposite of what they usually are. Um, and yes, I did go out of my way to make this smile creepy. But back to D-Strike's question. Because I didn't have any access to a place where I could physically work on developing my art with people who know what they're talking about, I decided if I posted it online, that would remove the physical barrier to things. So I posted on DeviantArt looking for critiques. And I got them, actually. Most of them were really nice, really gentle, very to the point. But they weren't things like, "Ah, cringe, your art is so bad." It was things like, if you want to do this better, try this technique instead. And I do think a lot of the modern internet culture, less so on DeviantArt, but to an extent on DeviantArt, has lost that edge of we're here to improve, and, you know, the point of a critique is not to squash a person's creative spark, it's to help them fan it into a flame. But a controlled flame, not an all-out wildfire. So I do think I was a little bit privileged in getting to get my start on DeviantArt around that time, because everybody, at least the people who commented on my stuff, were encouraging and legitimately helped me be better at this. And I have to say that the biggest period of expansion as far as my art skills goes was in the first 2 to 3 years that I was posting on art, because people recommended new tutors, new tutorials, programs, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, your commissions and requests did help build me up, especially when it comes to like my following and focusing more intently on how to manage it like a proper social media account. Because before you came along, I really did just kind of treat it, uh, like a thing that I did, not a thing that was important to focus on. I don't know. I'm glad they are, though, and I hope that if anybody watching this is like 14 and maybe looking to, and maybe in a similar situation where they maybe can't work on their art adequately or get the kind of critiques that'll really help them take it to the next level, I highly recommend doing stuff online. Actually, the reason that I even started doing these request streams was to challenge myself and try to get into another period of really building up my skills. Because I thought you guys can come up with things that I wouldn't think of, and that will challenge my art skills in new and unusual ways. So that's why I do this. My entire goal with this is to get better. It's the same goal I've had since I started online, and it's the same goal I want to have uh, the day I become dearly departed. Um, is there's always, always, always something to improve, no matter who you are or how good you are. Um, and if you find yourself feeling like you're starting to get away from or abandon the people who used to teach you when you were starting out, that is perfectly normal. Sometimes you just outgrow things. Um, I haven't watched a Mark Crilly video in over a month, but that doesn't mean that he was any less important in development as an artist, you know? Um, but I will say that a very important skill to learn, um, it was one that luckily I didn't have to learn until the 2010s started. A very important skill to learn, especially these days, is how to distinguish useful critique from non-useful critique. Um, Useful critique is stuff that you can take and legitimately learn how to improve what you're after. Non-useful critique offers you no help for getting better. Um, and it's a distinction that takes a little while to learn because I don't know about you guys, but when I was first starting out, I took every critique. Um, I took every critique as paramount importance. Um, which at the time I was lucky, a lot of them were. Um, a lot of them were things like remember to save, um, you know, don't don't do everything on one layer. Get some anatomy references. Maybe start using some photo references. Um, and really, those are some of the most useful things you can do. But nowadays, everybody's got an opinion, which everybody should have an opinion, but not all opinions are going to be useful for everyone's purposes. Um, huh. When you sent me some of your pieces, what were my thoughts on them? Um, your pieces are really solid, but I do get the impression that you're tracing uh, directly from screenshots. Um, yeah, I think like everybody here can say that we've improved since we were teenagers. Um, that's just kind of the nature of how it works. As long as you keep doing stuff, you're gonna get better at it. Um, it's almost inevitable, unless you're actively trying not to get better at it. Your tastes will change, your critical eye will develop. Um, and sometimes like things you liked or were really proud of, you're gonna look back and be, ooh, that is not very good. Um, but yeah, that's just a function of sticking with it, um, which honestly is the biggest way to improve, I think. Um, at least it's the most inevitable way to improve. Because if you keep doing stuff, you will get better at it. You'll find a groove, you will get bored with the groove, you'll try new things, you'll find a new groove. Um, yeah, I've noticed that. But if you want to improve faster, um, I recommend using a ton of photo references. It is not cheating to use photo references. It is incredibly useful to use photo references. Artists have been using photo references since the camera was invented, and before the camera was invented, we literally set things up right in front of us so we could look at them. Drawing from life, drawing from references is a time-honored tradition, and I don't know why anyone thinks it's cheating these days. But that, well, you know what? It's not just, it's my art teacher and everyone who has legitimately helped me improve. With advice. I forgot to get a reference for the Keyblade. But, oof, this hand does not look like a good hand. This is probably a very uncomfortable position. I'm gonna try something else. That less uncomfortable. Yeah, that is gonna be a little less comfortable. Yeah, see, use references all the time. And like that's how you, like, even when you get to a point where you can draw things without references, you have to draw things with references until you build up that understanding of how it works in your mind, that you can draw it from imagination. I had to briefly look at my own hand to draw this hand, and I still think it's off. But I have only 5 minutes left, and I have to make some choices here. Because I have a midterm assignment I write. And if any of you are wondering why I'm live streaming instead of writing my midterm assignment, it's because I'm a little on the outside and I needed a break. And this is a nice break. And also that professor's really chill. Yeah, the other thing that is really going to help you get better at art is to stop using cheats to hide the things you're not good at drawing. A badly drawn hand, even as badly drawn as this one, is still better than not drawing a hand. So, honestly, if you have something you want to draw, use a reference, go for it, hope for the best. And you will have that much more experience under your belt. Oh no, it's fine. I am seeing this stream through to the 1 hour mark. Like I do have what I need to have that. I do have that assignment completed. I just wanted to go over it. It's not even a screenplay. It is an outline of a screenplay. Um, and it's not even a complete outline of, of a screenplay. It's like an outline of half a screenplay. Um, I just need to go back and see what, if anything, I can cut because it's 3 pages long. And Professor said we only had to turn in 2 pages max. Besides, I have like 3 hours in between. Fine, guys. So yeah, I guess next week I will be talking about George Lucas possibly directing a DC movie, and what are some other things I could talk about next week? Um, or what are some things you would like me to talk about next week, or just anything you think is interesting or that I might have an interesting for. As long as it's not political, I try to keep my channel non-political because I do not have the energy to deal with that. At least not in a professional setting. I know there are people who would be like, but politics influence everything, and they do, but not have the energy for it. And I'm sorry, but that's life. Or at least that's my life right now when I'm drowning in midterm depression. I'm kidding, I'm not drowning in depression. I have some really good coping mechanisms this year. Like personifying it and then giving it a ridiculous voice. Oh, I am going to be talking about Fant4stick and Xbone, but I'm going to be doing that this evening because I have a point that I want to make, and an actual argument this time. So yeah, I will be talking about Fant4stick and Xbone. Don't worry, I can and will be discussing them. Alright, so we are just at the hour mark, and I think I am not going to color this in. I think I'm going to leave the line art right where it is, and I will oh dude, I'm so sorry. I know how that is. Good luck. I'm just going to this. Not on skin. I'm going to background trans layer, and I'm expert. As a coloring. I can't type today. But yeah, I will get these posted. You guys are free to print stuff out and color it. Except like if you guys want, you can totally request pieces I do as line art to color in. I post line art of all my digital speed paint. Except for 2. There are only 2 that I did, and I did them more in a painterly style so they don't have line art. Ooh. Good luck. Um, yeah, for $2 and up patrons over on Patreon, I do offer line art of all paints. So $2 or more, you get speed paint line art, or just even for just $1, um, you get early access to all my stuff. I have some sketches I posted there this morning for the speed paint that I'm gonna do this Friday. And yeah, so I will see you guys in a few hours. Uh, have a nice little bit, and I'll see you soon. Bye.